Hello friends, we are back and this time we are going to discuss the dynamic response of second order system. So let me recapitulate or give a recap of whatsoever happened in the last session. We found that we have a second order system which is defined by this transfer function. Just keep an eye. It is defined by this transfer function, and Kp here is called the static gain or steady state gain or simply gain as it was in case of the first order systems. We have a new term zeta which is called the damping factor, and the tau over here in the form of tau square in the form of tau over here is not time constant. It is not time constant, but it is period of natural oscillation. What is the meaning of period of natural oscillation? We will discuss in detail that in case this zeta is 0, in case zeta is 0, then whatsoever is the time period taken to oscillate, that period of natural oscillation, supposing this damping is 0, it is called tau. We will go in for detail in this session about this. So to this transfer function, we give a step change. And we all know that the Laplace of step change, unit step change, is 1 upon s. So this 1 multiplied by kp, this 1 is not visible, 1 multiplied by kp divided by s. This s comes over here. So ultimately the response, the response of or the output of a second order system, the dynamic response of this will be, if you take the inverse, Laplace inverse of this equation, in that case whatsoever you will get is the dynamic response. And you see, my dear friends, this is a quadratic equation, and whenever you solve any quadratic equation, what you get is you get two roots. In this case, these two roots will be called the two poles, and those poles will depend upon whether the discriminant, if you remember right from standard 7th or 8th, b square minus 4ac is called discriminant, and this discriminant can be equal to 0, positive or negative, and accordingly we have three different types of quadratic equations and the solutions. The roots may be equal, the roots may be unequal and real, the roots may be imaginary. This is what we have been studying for so many years, right from the beginning of our mathematics journey. Now we are going to solve this and see what the response is step by step, this unit step forcing function. Once again, as I said, we have a characteristics polynomial given by tau square s square plus 2 zeta tau s plus 1. We put it equal to 0 and we get two poles, and the two roots are called the two poles, and these poles, as we know, are given by minus zeta upon tau plus square root of zeta square minus 1 upon tau. And in second case it's just the same, but instead of this plus you have this minus. It's a simple equation. Now depending upon the value of zeta, the value of zeta can be greater than 1. In that case, it's greater than 1, the two roots will be real but unequal. In case this zeta is equal to 1, 1 minus 1 is 0, in that case you will have two roots which are still real but they are the same roots, right? And finally, in case this zeta is less than 1, as is the case in most of the times, then in that case this entire thing will become imaginary. Imaginary means you will have an iota over here, and accordingly the Laplace inverse is also going to change. So ultimately, if you take the Laplace inverse of this entire equation, what you will get is, I'm going to show you next, it's going to be, this is kp upon tau square. I'm dividing everything by tau square, numerator and denominator, and ultimately I'm going to get p1 and p2 are given by this kind of equation. P1 and P2 are given to me, and ultimately I have to take its inverse. So depending upon the location of P1 and P2 in the complex plane, we will have different types of responses: case 1, case 2, case 3. Case 1, what if zeta is greater than 1? Case 2, what if zeta is equal to 1? Case 3, what if zeta is less than 1? So all these things will be taken care of one by one. As I said, we will explore all the three cases one by one, and the case 1 is when zeta is greater than 1. We call this as the overdamped response. When we have two distinct, unequal, and real poles, it's called overdamped response. What happens in this case is that when you take the Laplace inverse of that, you get output in terms of cos hyperbolic and sine hyperbolic. It looks very complicated over here in the algebraic form over here, but its curve is somewhat similar to what we had in case of first order response. The only difference is that first order response started with a greater slope, and slowly its slope reduced. In this case, it starts slowly, it starts sluggishly. The beginning is slow, then it picks up the speed, and then finally it again slows down. This is kind of little bit of S shape in this. It's slightly different from the regular first order system. That's what we're going to see in the figure. But this cos hyperbolic and sine hyperbolic are the trigonometric functions given by, as you can see over here, sine hyperbolic is given by this expression and cos hyperbolic is given by this expression. We need not bother much about these things because ultimately they are going to boil down to one rising curve, as we shall be seeing. So this is called an overdamped response, and I said that it resembles something like the first order response, but when compared, I'm just reading it now, to the first order response, we notice that the system is initially delays to the response, and then its response in the initial stages is rather sluggish. Overall also it's rather sluggish as compared to the first order response. But this is what we're going to see in the figure, in the diagram subsequently. As such, we have already been defining Kp as the static gain. It's the ultimate change in the output when it actually settles down at the steady state, divided by the change in the input which we are given as a stimulus. So this is called Kp. It is just the same as it was in case of initial first order response. So the second case is when we say that zeta is equal to 1. It's critically damped, and in that case the value of output will be given by this expression. And we notice that the second order system with critical damping approaches its ultimate value faster than an overdamped system because it is critically damped. Critically damped means that a little less damping and start oscillating. Right now it is thus just just on the verge of becoming oscillatory. A little less and it will start oscillating, and that's the maximum value, or you can say that's the minimum value of uh, the damping factor you can have without oscillations, or on the other side, that is the maximum value you can have with oscillations. This is just the break even kind of thing, the limiting point on both the sides. So where do we find overdamped response? Mostly in multi-capacity processes we have overdamped response. The response is second order, but it is not oscillatory, and the reason it is not oscillatory is that zeta is often more than 1. That's what we are going to see in the subsequent sessions as such. Back to the response, as I told you that we start with an overdamped response with some zeta. Let us say zeta is equal to 1.2, it becomes 1.4, this becomes like this, it becomes 1.6. You can obviously see it's going to be like this and so on. And it's the fastest when it's critically damped, that is when zeta is equal to 1. So you see, as I told you, that it is little bit of S shaped. It's not starting from here and moving up like this and going like this in case of first order response. It's not going to go like this. Starting May, it's slightly slow and then it becomes picks up the speed and then again it becomes slow. It is showing this S shaped kind of response. And the moment this zeta, this damping factor becomes lesser than 1, from equal to 1 to zero point 0.9, in that case, you will see that this will start oscillating around, this will start going up and down around this point. So this is just critically damped response, in the sense that it is fastest without oscillation. It's fastest without oscillation. You increase the value of zeta, you increase the value of this damping factor, and it becomes more and more and more and more sluggish. This is what we see. And now we come to the third case, when zeta is actually less than 1. In that case, we call it as the underdamped response. And as you can see, the Laplace inverse will yield something which is going to contain a sinusoidal function. A sinusoidal function means that yes, it is going to oscillate, and it's going to oscillate with the frequency omega, and the omega is given by this expression. It will have some phase lag also, and the phase lag is given by tan inverse of this thing. You need not go in, this is all regular mathematical stuff. You have been studying it in the Laplace inverse for last so many days, weeks, or maybe semesters. Ultimately, this is the underdamped response, as I said, for zeta less than 1, and we see that there are three things to be observed. The underdamped response is initially faster than the critically damped or overdamped. So we said that if zeta becomes lesser, the response becomes faster. But the moment it becomes less than 1, the moment it comes to the case number 3, it starts oscillating. It starts oscillating, but the grace is that the amplitude will be decaying. You see, the amplitude is decaying. It's e the power minus exponential term, minus zeta t by tau. So it's going to decay. The amplitude is not constant, it's going to decay, and it's progressively decreasing amplitude. So this oscillatory behavior makes underdamped response quite distinct from the overdamped and the critically damped, that it has oscillations and the oscillations are going to decay. And as the value of zeta becomes smaller and smaller, its oscillations become more and more pronounced, more and more prominent, more and more visible, more and more with higher amplitude, and so on. Of course, they will all decay down. Nothing to worry as such. They are going to decay down, but they will be having higher oscillations as such. Something which we ultimately get in terms of the underdamped response of second order system. You can say the dynamic response of an underdamped second order system where zeta is less than 1. And this is something very important. We have to keep a very keen eye on all these things, that of course it is sluggish in the beginning, and then it increases, and then it starts decreasing, but then as it decreases, it's going down, and then it's again going to move up, and it's going to go down, and it's going to move up, and ultimately it's going to settle down in this plus minus 5% of the steady state value. Ultimately it's going to settle down at the steady state value. This dotted line actually indicates the steady state value. So there are a number of things as we see. Some of them are written, some of them I will be just telling to you. What are these? That as it moves from 0 and it first reaches the steady state value, this time, that is from here to here, it is called the rise time. This is called rise time. And ultimately, after moving up, and down and up and down and up. Ultimately, it's going to settle down within this plus minus 5% band. That is, it comes in this plus minus 5% band and it remains in this plus minus 5% band. See, it comes in the plus minus 5% band here also. It remains in up to this point, it remains in plus minus 5% band, but then it moves out from the plus minus 5% band. Here also it's moving out from the plus minus 5% band. But once it's come up over here and thereafter, iske baad, thereafter, it's not going to move outside this plus minus 5% band. And this is the beauty. It means that now it is settled. Now it has settled. So this point, up to this point, right from 0 up to this point, we call it as the settling time. It is called the settling time. It settles down. It's also called the response time. So response time or settling time, as you see over here, we call it over here. This is second thing we notice. The third thing we notice is that this is the normal steady state value. Then we call this as B, and this is the point it goes to the maximum and then comes down. This is called A. So this A upon B, this ratio of A upon B, this is called overshoot. It can be 25%, 30%, 40%, whatsoever. A upon B, this is called overshoot. And as we see, this was amplitude A for the first time. For the second time, the amplitude is C. For the second time, amplitude is C. So C upon A is called the decay ratio. 1 is to 3, 1 is to 4, 1 is to 5, and so on and so forth. The ideal, as we said in once upon a time it was discussed, the ideal is quarter decay. Quarter decay means when C upon A is equal to 1 upon 4, it is called quarter decay. Right? Why it is ideal? Because it's a compromised value. We will discuss why it is compromised. Because you have to make a compromise between the overshoot and the decay ratio. You want this to decay quickly, but if you want better decay ratios, then we will discuss this thing later. Okay, we'll not touch this subject right now. So this C upon A, as we can see over here, is the decay. We know A upon B is the overshoot and this is called the decay ratio. Now as we see that this is an oscillatory kind of thing. This is an oscillatory kind of thing. It's moving with some oscillations. So it's crossing this point here. From this point to this point, it is T. Or from this point to this point, it is T. Or you can say from this point to this point, it is also again T. This T is the time period. This is the actual time period. This is the actual time period, right? And we will see what is this actual time period and what is the actual frequency of this oscillation. We will compute from this T over here. So let's keep all these things in mind. So next time when I say A upon B, you should know what I mean. If I say C upon A, you should know what I mean. If I say rise time, you should know what I mean from here. And when I say settling time or response time, you should know what I mean by here. It's coming within plus minus 5% time band. All these things should be clearly known to you in the subsequent slides. Coming to the overshoot, as I said, it's a ratio A by B. B is the ultimate value, A is the maximum amount. This ratio A by B is called overshoot. This overshoot is function of zeta. And lesser the zeta, more is the overshoot. As you can see from the expression over here. So decreasing zeta, while as zeta approaches, decreasing zeta will increase overshoot, and as zeta approaches 1, overshoot approaches 0, because at zeta is equal to 1, as we had seen earlier, it becomes a critically damped response, and in critically damped response there is no oscillation and therefore there is no overshoot. But as zeta goes on decreasing, overshoot goes on increasing, as you can see from this expression also, right? The second thing, that is the decay ratio. Decay ratio is C is to 1. I told you quarter decay, C is to A. C is to A means the second oscillation is to previous oscillation. The ratio of the amount above the ultimate values of two successive peaks. Successive peaks. C was the second peak and A was the first peak. And the decay ratio can be shown to be related to zeta again by the same formula, but with additional 2 over here. But with additional 2 over here, and ultimately we see that decay ratio is equal to overshoot square root. Square of overshoot is decay ratio. So what do we find? Normally people say that I want good decay ratio but I don't want overshoot. That is not possible. If you want good decay ratio, then the overshoot will also increase. If you want bad decay ratio, as you may call it, then these are related terms. So we have to make a compromise somewhere over there. Decay ratio and overshoot are related. You improve the decay ratio, right, and the overshoot also changes accordingly. And then we have period of oscillation. We see that we have uh, omega in the sine term, which was given by 1 minus zeta square under the root divided by tau. And do not confuse, this tau is something different. Tau is period of natural oscillation, and this is period of oscillation. The word natural is missing. This is something you have to always keep in mind. This is not period of natural oscillation. This is period of oscillation, the actual oscillation. The actual oscillation when damping is there is given by this formula, where you have this 1 minus zeta square under the root divided by tau. Now to find the period of oscillation, capital T, that is the time elapsed between two successive peaks. Omega is known, so what you have to do is omega is equal to 2 pi into f, and you can just have a look over here. Omega is equal to 2 pi into f, and f is equal to 1 by t. Therefore t will be given by this expression, and nothing big about it. You just keep on putting in the previous and previous and previous equations. You will get t as this. This is the period of oscillation. This is not the period of natural oscillation. This is what I've been telling you again and again. You have to keep in mind. And we see what happens next. Back to the response, as I told you that we start with an overdamped response with some zeta. Let us say zeta is equal to 1.2. It becomes 1.4. This becomes like this. It becomes 1.6. You can obviously see coming to this natural period of oscillation, that is if we put zeta is equal to 0. If in that case the equation will become, as you can see over here, the equation will become kp tau square z square plus 1. The term 2 zeta tau is missing because zeta is equal to 0, and in that case this can be split. You can find the roots into these two parts. These are purely imaginary poles, and being purely imaginary poles, you can see that in this case omega n is equal to 1 upon tau. And because omega n is equal to 1 upon tau, omega n is 1 upon tau. That's why this tau is given the name of natural period of oscillation, or period of natural oscillation, as you may call it, right? And this is the value of tau, and the corresponding cycle period is, don't forget this 2 pi. This 2 pi will be there because omega into converted into tau into tn, you have to have the value 2 pi. So because of this value, the parameter tau is given the name natural period of oscillation. I think now it's very, very clear why we call it like that. Response time, I've already been telling you. Then when it reaches the plus minus 5% band and it remains there, it stays there. So this kind of time is known as response time. or settling time as sometimes it's called, and the rise time, the first time it reaches the ultimate response, and then it's before the overshoot. So it's defined as the time required for the response to reach its final value for the first time. It may not remain there, it has to overshoot there, but anyway, it has reached there, that's why it's called rise time. And we notice that smaller the value of zeta, shorter is the rise time, faster is the response time, right? But then larger will be the overshoot and more will be the decay ratio. So you cannot have both the things. If you want quick response, if you want fast response, then you will have higher overshoots, you will have greater decay ratios, you will take long time to settle. But in case you want lesser overshoots, in case you want the thing to settle down quickly, in that case the system will be sluggish, and in that case the rise time will also be larger. Means you have to make a compromise somewhere where the rise time is also not very long and the oscillations are not also very high. So that is the point we make a compromise, and that compromise is made by most of the designers when they go in for C is to A as 1 upon 4. This C is to A as 1 upon 4 means that every successive oscillation will have an amplitude which is quarter of the previous one. It's called quarter decay. This is what most of the designers who want to design the systems, they do it to make a compromise between the rise time and the overshoot. And the overshoot is related to the decay ratio. Decay ratio is equal to overshoot whole square. This is what you have seen in the previous slides. That is how we make a compromise while designing the control system or while designing the response of a second order system as such. So friends, this was about the dynamic response of a second order system. I hope you have got the grasp of it, you got the feel of it, you got the scene, you have seen the system response in the time domain as such. In case you have any queries or doubts or you want to share something with me, you can always contact me through Zoom or through WhatsApp or through phones or face-to-face interaction as the case may be. I hope you all have enjoyed this session and gained something, an insight to the second order system should be used quite often in most of the cases. As such, I thank you for being with me and I wish you a very safe stay. Bye bye. The second thing, that is the decay ratio. As I said,